Am I supposed to have been hearing the music yet?
Did you not?
Nope.
Did you not hear? I heard it.
I did not.
I didn't either. So,
off to a good start.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to
hold on a
Press
sec.
YYZ, your
I was
favorite
gonna-
Canadian gaming
I was
podcast.
gonna-
You can watch the show
I guess-
weekly
all right, I guess I
on
will.
youtube.com/Press YYZ, live on twitch.tv/Press YYZ, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or listen on your own time on your podcast service of choice. We appreciate however you choose to support the show, but if you've got no loonies or toonies to toss our way, it's all good. We will be here for you no matter what. And as always, before we get started, remember, be good to each other. Discrimination of any kind, be it over one's race, gender, sexual orientation, literally anything, is wrong and will not be tolerated within this community. Tonight, we're going to get through all the things we've been up to and have a great discussion suggested by one of our listeners, Robbie Rob Plays, on what canceled games we wish we could play. I am your host with the most tonight, Mr. Mitch George, joined as always by our two-time award-winning film student, Alex Ballant.
it's been a long time, my friends. I missed you all so much.
Our thumbnail thespian, AJ Fraser.
I hope you realize I'm not cutting any of that intro out of the audio version.
And the man who thought we could hear his music, but we couldn't, Mr. Alexander Kozi
I
Kozina.
was gonna suggest earlier that we just redo the intro and I'll just like point at Mitch when he's supposed to start speaking, but I suppose that this is the way God intended this episode to be.
Dumpster truck on
Unfortunately,
fire.
as it is, this is how we've been brought together. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into it. As you heard, but I didn't, we have a new theme song provided to us courtesy of one Thomas Rockiewicz. So thank you so much, Thomas, for providing us with this lovely theme. It's awesome, fits the vibe of the show, and we all absolutely adore it.
Yeah, this was a
Press YYZ has a... Sorry, go ahead, Kozi.
I just want to say this is a long in the works collaborative project with the man, the myth, the legend, Thomas Rockiewicz, and I personally am very, very happy with how it came out, and I hope that everybody is as well. You can go to Thomas Rockiewicz on Twitter, that's at ROCKYOWITZ, to find more of his musical talents, and you can also head to our Twitter account if you want to hear the theme again there.
Press YYZ isn't the only podcast we put out. YYZ Video has put up our latest episode, Cars in Review,
Life
live
is a
on YouTube
highway.
and podcast services, and is, I hate to say it, but probably the single funniest piece of content we've put together in the lifetime of this channel.
I've heard I haven't listened to the episode, but I've heard this from very important people in my life. So
You mean your girlfriend who texts me every other week when the episodes come out on Fridays at youtube.com/Press YYZ that it was hilarious and she'll never look at car exhaust the same way again.
yep, exactly that person. She doesn't listen to this.
No, I don't blame her. Kozi's going to continue playing through the Halo series, continuing Halo Combat Evolved over on twitch.tv/Press YYZ every Monday around 8, I think.
Yep, hell yeah.
Right? Maybe. And Nathan's going to play something probably when he streams tomorrow. Maybe. I don't know. He's not here, so he can't tell us what he's doing. But Alex, you're back.
I'm back. I'm so happy to be here. It's been a hectic couple of weeks, but it's so nice to get to turn brain off and just talk about video games.
That's what we're here for. That is what we here for. Speaking of video games, we haven't really played a lot of video games. Look at this list of stuff we've done. There's not a ton there. Kozi, I know you brought this up last week, but with the announcement of the PS3 and Vita stores closing, you've put together a list of things you need to download. You mean buy, right?
Yes.
Because the downloads aren't going away, just purchases.
Hell yes, ladies and gentlemen. As you said, Mitch, with the PlayStation 3 and Vita stores closing, I decided to take some time on the weekend and go and look up, what PlayStation 3 and Vita games I ought to download before said stores close. Because there are some games for a while that I've been meaning to get to in those two storefronts that either, are really interesting games that I've been meaning to get to in franchises I like, or, are games that are rich in trophies. I'm going to start off by giving you a quick look at some of the PlayStation 3 games that I have noted down. So
not everyone is looking, so be sure to talk everyone through it as well. For those who catch us on any audio service,
Mitch, I'm not just gonna say, hey, you can look right now at your MP3 player and look at the games I'm about to play right now.
You did say look, in my defense.
Look at what your mind's eye, man. Look what your mind's eye.
Yeah, just feel it, man. It's gonna be great.
Guys, 420 isn't for a couple of weeks. That isn't this episode. God damn it.
What?
People have...
Actually, technically that's next week, right?
It's next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Our next episode, I believe, is not going to fall on it, unfortunately.
Nope.
Yeah. So, with the closure of the PlayStation 3 and Vita stores, people pointed out that games like Infamous Festival of Blood are no longer going to be available to purchase, which is why that is the first game on my list of PlayStation 3 games to purchase. I have a total of 21 games that I want to get. Like I said, Infamous Festival of Blood, Tales from Space About a Blob, Detuned, The Walking Dead, Michonne, which I know I can get on some other platforms, but I want to get it here just so I can get access to those trophies. All in all, the cost of all the games I'm planning to get on the PS3's digital store come out to $343.50. On the road from where we are talking about it here to the road that we're eventually going to be on when I actually purchase all these games and regret it, I might decide to not get some of these games if I feel like it's burning too big of a hole in my wallet's pocket. However, we've not yet talked about some of the Vita games that I'm going to be purchasing. So,
do wallets have pockets?
Hell yeah!
Yeah, actually, there are pockets in your wallet where you put things. Like
I don't really call them
credit card.
I call them like sleeves.
It's a credit card pocket. It's a money pocket in the wallet.
You keep money in your wallet?
I had a birthday very recently, so
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
sorry, Kozi, continue about the Vita.
No, it's not a problem. That actually gave me ample time to switch over to my Vita document and make it a little bit more easy to read. So here's the thing: in going over both the PlayStation 3's online store and the Vita's online store, it was really apparent to me like how developers and how trophies change over the course of the span of years between the two consoles releases. The PlayStation 3, there are like very, very few digital only games on that platform that have platinum trophies attached to them. The Vita, on the other hand, we are in Platinum Central City. Like any 2-bit developer that had a digital game release on the Vita's online store more than likely had a Vita Platinum trophy attached to it, which means that after exhaustively going through the store and making a number of difficult concessions and sacrifices, I decided that in total, I am going to aim to get 165 games on the Vita, which comes out to a total of $1,743.49.
Jesus Christ.
It's not worth it. The Vita's not worth that much.
You're
even Sony doesn't think it was worth that much.
Yeah.
Realistically, I'm not actually going to get all these games, but it's difficult because a lot of these games are games like Pick-a-Pix Color Classic 2, Pick-a-Pix Deluxe. These are like, it's like Picross or like Pictionary or like, word search games that like, oh, I totally enjoy doing some of those things on my own when it's not even in video game format, and I'll like it even better when it's a video game. I'll like it even better when it's a Vita video game, and I'll like it even better when it's a Vita video game that I'm earning platinum trophies for.
There it is.
And so, it's just...
How much are these platinums really worth to you?
Apparently over $1,000.
Yeah. It's tough, though, because, like, okay, so to pull back the curtain a little bit, in addition to those, like, crossword and Picross games, there also are a couple of games here and there on this list that I've culled that are games that you can theoretically get a physical release for, but they only got a physical release via limited run games, for example, where they specifically only create, per the name, a limited run of these games. So like only 2,000 copies of like Nurse Simulator Dating Deluxe, for example. So I could theoretically get myself a copy of Nurse Simulator Dating Deluxe, but it would cost me like theoretically thousands of dollars on an aftermarket. Well, maybe not thousands, but like $3,000 or maybe not $3,000, more like $10,000. Wait, that's not how math works.
If you pay $10,000 for a goddamn dating sim,
not just
and you have a PC that almost imploded on you, I'm going to have words.
The point is that there are some games. There are some
Mr.
games.
Kazina.
There are some games on this list that like cost me $50 to purchase digitally, but would cost me like a couple times more that if I purchased them physically after the fact. So I'm putting them on there tentatively. But when push comes to shove, when I actually get around to purchasing some of these games, I'm probably going to knock a bunch of them off this list. And yeah, that is that.
To be fair, Mitch, what else could he possibly be spending that money on?
I mean, he could go out and spend money on something like, say, Outriders. Alex, AJ, you guys have been playing a bit of Outriders.
Don't spend money on Outriders.
Get it through Game Pass.
Yeah,
I did do that on the Xbox One, and let me tell you, those load times. No, it runs fine-ish. Those load times are worse than Marvel's Avengers on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me tell you though, on the Series X, flawless. It loads instantly. It'll go start at 0, go right up to 80, and then immediately jump into the being fully loaded. It's so nice.
I do have one pet peeve of that though. Before almost every loading screen like that, there is a brief cutscene that is just your character transitioning from one area to another, whether it be squeezing through rocks or climbing a rope or something like that. For some reason, they felt it necessary to add this cutscene in, and it's
there's a lot There's a lot of fade to blacks as well, which just it does pull you a little bit out of the immersion as well. Yeah. One of the things I found, and I don't know if I was losing my mind or not, and I'm going to need to ask, during the cutscenes of like the main story, were there times where the aspect ratio was just changing? It was going from full screen to widescreen?
I don't think I'm a trained film student enough to notice that sort of detail. I just noticed when character models in cutscenes and stuff, when their like lips would get stuck to their teeth and tear apart for like 10 frames, and it would be very jarring.
Yeah, there's a decent amount of jank in this, but for all of that, it's just really fun.
Yeah. So okay, last week when I briefly spoke about it, I wasn't exactly excited about it. I just it's a very, very okay game, and I still mostly maintain that. But there is something about it that has grabbed me in such a way. First of all, listeners at home, please pour one out for my pyromancer, who has unfortunately encountered the infamous inventory deletion bug.
Ooh.
Which, the devs say that they have a way that they can restore not exactly what you had, but at the very least get your character back so you don't lose all that progress, which is fine. I wasn't attached to any of my equipment at any point, but after that, you'd think a game that I didn't spend any extra money on because I got it through Game Pass, you would think that I, for whatever, would just maybe put it down and be like, okay, nope, I'm done for now, whatever. Something that I wasn't exactly too hot on or whatnot. But no, what did I do on Sunday, the day after I lost my precious pyromancer? I started a new character and went with the technomancer this time, and I am in one day I got just about up to where I got in the previous week entirely. That is how hard I binged it, and I don't know why I can't stop.
I mean, there's something super satisfying about playing through, and just like, because I'm playing the trickster, and so for me, just bouncing across the arenas that they bring you to, and just like using all of, like, I love the risk reward that this game really tries to give you of like, you need to get close, you need to like actually like do stuff to be able to get your health back, and it's satisfying. And I think that's the biggest reason why I'm not a super big fan of games as service. Like, Destiny, I will jump back to whenever there's like a story expansion, but shortly after these, like, I finish whatever the new campaign is, I'm done with it. I never played The Division. I didn't really stick with Marvel's Avengers after I beat the main
Go back,
story.
you coward!
Yeah, we'll see about that. But
Yeah.
this one, I don't know what it was about it, but I think partly the expectations were so low for it, and also it being on Game Pass really did help me just like be like, yeah, you know what, I'll keep playing it. And it was great in the sense that I could just throw on a podcast and just shoot things. Honestly, it's the most B tier game I feel like I've played recently, but it doesn't stop it from being. I feel like I'm guiltily having more fun than I probably should be, but in like I don't know, it's hard to explain.
I've heard it described as a classic 360 PS3 era B tier experience.
Reminds me of something like THQ would put out.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. And you can see all the trappings in there that, regardless of what they say out loud, I don't necessarily believe that this was never intended to be a service game. I suspect that after Avengers. And everything with that. Not saying it's bad or anything. I'm just saying that probably had some sort of influence. And coming off the heels still of something like Anthem, there's a lot of there's definitely a lot of those hooks in there, but it's balanced in such a way that it feels rewarding enough. As if they didn't take all the hooks out so that you would spend money. Does that make sense? I sort of lost the thread there.
Makes me want to keep playing but not spend money.
Yeah,
I think part of it too is this being developed by People Can Fly. I don't think they probably went to Square with the original idea, and that's how they got the publishing deal. Mm-hmm. I feel like it may have been more Square Enix influence, not with it being on the heels of Marvel's Avengers, but just their strategy for multiplayer games moving forward seems to be focused in that area, having Avengers come out last year, Outriders early this year. And maybe that was just part of the arrangement to get the game published in the first place. So it was kind of like, a lesser of two evils of does the game come out or does it not? And having to make some of these concessions to appease their publishing partner. We don't know how hands-on or hands-off Square was with this game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. Games as a service doesn't hook me, but with a group, I've found myself falling in love with both The Division 2 and Marvel's Avengers the last couple of years. And this was another one that I had on my radar, especially with the Game Pass announcement. It doesn't run well on that Xbox One. Eventually, I'll have an Xbox Series X. That is not now because my local drugstore that sells video games that I have a ton of loyalty points for refuses to restock the dang thing. But I get that that's probably, there's more issue to that. We've got this microprocessor shortage, and that's leading to issues with getting everything manufactured from Xboxes to graphics cards. So hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. Kozi, go ahead.
I want to say, I believe that we previously touched on this on a previous episode, but this game is developed by People Can Fly, which is a development studio that I think originally rose to prominence with the release of 2011's Bulletstorm, which was very much, it was kind of like, for its time, like a modern Duke Nukem, in the sense that it's like, hey, let's do a dick and fart joke first-person shooter that's still a little bit kind of more smart and has a little bit more tact than, say, the Duke Nukem games of old. And what I've been hearing is that this game doesn't really have a lot of humor to it, or like a lot of just smart writing, period.
It's dark.
It's dark.
Yeah.
It feels like what a 14-year-old would think is like, this is dark and edgy.
And we're going to say fuck.
Yeah, and we're going to have this anti-hero who doesn't care, but secretly he does. It feels like somebody read a Punisher comic and is like, I like that guy. I want to make a story about him. It really feels like that.
There is one mission midway through where you get it from a vendor, and this vendor has a debt that he has to pay, and he's if he doesn't pay this, he's going to die essentially. So maybe about a 10-second walk away from this vendor is the location where this guy is that he's supposed to pay back. So you go speak with him. Now, keep in mind, you are a bit of a super powered being of sorts in this. And what this bad guy is saying is, play this game of Russian roulette with me, and it's literally Russian roulette. And if you win, his debt is paid. If I win, I'm killing you both or something like that. Anyway, you've got these godly powers, and so he pulls the trigger first. Gun doesn't go off. You pull the trigger and you blast yourself in the head, and then your body glows blue, and you basically come kind of like it didn't really affect you, and you tell him that it's his turn, that there should only be one bullet in there, right? And he shits his pants and pulls the trigger himself, and he's done. And like there's no shooting, like you don't control that or anything like that. It's just a cutscene, this entire mission. And so there's the odd random thing like that in there that is just slightly out of place but fits at the same time. And the whole thing is just really interesting how it all kind of came together. So
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the intro to the whole game, just like sort of one final point, just kind of, this is with the whole presentation of it, just sort of in general, the intro of the game is weirdly like dark, and it's like I'm just surprised, like, and it sets it up as like a completely different experience than like what it actually ends up being. It like feels like this weird like war drama thing of like, and the themes of it, like before, because it's supposed to be you're on like an alien planet, and the way that they talk about what happened on Earth, it like is weird. And especially I've been reading a lot of the journals and stuff that you collect, and like the lore of the game is really cool. Like it just doesn't feel like it translates to like the main game itself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really quick before we move on to something else, so you're playing the Trickster. What level are you, and what world tier have you unlocked?
I think I'm like level 28 or 29. Like I'm close to max level. Okay. And I got up to like world tier 7 or 8. And then there was a certain point where I was like, this is so hard that I have stopped having fun. And so I dropped it back down to normal just to at least get through the main story. And then if I like, if I do like expeditions with people, we'll probably try and bump it up to like, the higher levels.
Yeah, just really quick. I don't know exactly how they balanced it, because I had like kind of the same issue, like moving up. Like for some reason, very early on with my Pyromancer, it was World Tier 4 was a goddamn nightmare. Like, what the hell is going on here? But eventually we got better gear and we were able to surpass that. My Pyromancer was level 26 with World Tier 10, and my Technomancer right now is level 28, and I am just a sliver away from World Tier 15. So it's fun.
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't really understand what the world tier actually meant as they like when they first like introduce it to you. So I just had it on to have it on by default to the highest level that you get. And then after I finished one of the bosses in the game, it took me like an hour to just kill this one boss, and I was like, why is this so hard? And then I went back and realized, I've been playing on like, I think it's called like extreme difficulty or something, and I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And so then at that point, I was like a little bit more conscious of like putting it to. I usually would like hover around 4 or 5, depending on how difficult the area was, and then I would like if it was really hard, I would jump down to like 3.
Yeah,
which
it
is
doesn't
like normal.
It doesn't seem to have like the best balance in that regard, but if you just kind of stick with it a bit or even drop it down a little, you'll eventually get better gear to where you feel comfortable turning that world tier up, and you should be able to handle it. It's just me and 2 other friends on elite enemies. They're both level 30, and me at 28 are just absolutely dumping all of our bullets into dudes' heads, and they're not going. They don't melt. They just don't go down. And
they turn into bullet sponges at higher levels.
Yeah, it takes a good 10 minutes sometimes per full encounter to get rid of all the other enemies and just be able to focus on the elite, and then another 5 minutes total of just bullets, just getting headshots and trying to avoid their attacks and stuff. And
it's one of the things I didn't like about Destiny and a lot of these like games of service is like at a certain point the way that they, and I mean just games in general, but I feel like it's especially plagued in games of service of like the way that they do difficulty is the enemies, they got a lot of health. You just got to keep shooting them and they could kill you in a second, and it takes you like 10 minutes to kill one enemy.
It's one of the reasons I didn't like The Division, is because I couldn't suspend my disbelief in that I was playing a video game because it was set in the real world, where in this I've got superpowers. Other people have some superpowers, so I can
There's giant monsters,
the giant monsters, I can imagine that they might be a little more hardy and take some extra bullets or something. But Mitch, sorry.
I hate to interrupt, but we actually have some breaking news.
Oh, dear.
For anyone interested in seeing the award-winning Access Granted documentary directed by our very own Alex Ballant, the Humber Film Program is hosting a screening or a festival or something. Alex, explain what's happening on Saturday for anyone who's watching it now. If you're in the Twitch chat, links in the chat to a tweet. If not, twitter.com/Press YYZ or /blatantly_Alex. You can find all the info there.
Yes, so this is something that has just like kind of come like it was yesterday it became a thing, and then today. So essentially what it is, it's a screening for all the docs that got made. For my second year of film school, there was 15 documentaries that were made, and I directed one of them, featuring friend of the show Steve Saylor, and so. Yeah, and so they're showing them all off now. Each one is anywhere from 6 to 10 minutes. Access Granted is number 4, so it should be relatively early in the show. I think I've seen a good number of them. They're all pretty wonderful, but for sure. And so that is going to be Saturday, April 17th. All you need to do is sign up on Eventbrite. You just need to get like a online ticket, and then you get sent. They're streaming it over YouTube, so. It's, wherever, any device, as long as you have the link to it, it'll be, and I'll be tweeting about this a lot more. But as well, a very special thing, which I don't understand I don't know why anyone would let me do this, but on the day of Saturday, April 17th, if you follow Humber Film on Instagram, I would say follow it just for one day, because I'm gonna have my dumb face all over it because they're letting me take over that account for some reason. So all over the stories, there's gonna be a lot of posts.
Some might say access was granted to you.
You're not the first person to have made that joke.
Yes.
Humber Film following. Okay,
I just
I'm good to go.
Say,
but as well, I do need to say one other thing about this, in particular. It is a slightly older version of the documentary. It's the one that I showed Steve Saylor the first time. So the subtitles the captions for it are not the most updated version of it. So they're a little rough. I already know this. I'm a little sad I couldn't slip in the like final version of it. But besides that, the content of the film is exactly the same. It's just this one little thing that's going to bother me knowing that other people are seeing it. But besides that,
You shouldn't have brought it up, because now everyone's just going to pick that out and tweet you all the things they loved and that one thing.
I hope so. That's what I needed to say it just for my own, like, okay, I can say that this is this is what it is. So you don't need to tell me that the captions aren't super great.
By the way,
That's okay.
if you guys in the chat are going to sign up to this Hummer Film Eventbrite thing, you should probably stick around after Alex's documentary airs, because it's going to be super weird if after Access Granted airs, 400 people leave the chat. It's like, oh man, we got a real good turnout today. Hey, wait a minute, where's everyone going?
I see. Yeah, so that yeah, definitely come check it out. I absolutely do love the doc. I think it is probably the best thing I've ever made so far.
Hey, you make this show and the other show we do.
That's true. I love
we
that.
talk
But
about car poop for 20 minutes.
That is true, and how it causes global warming.
Go check out the video. Yeah, no spoilers.
Just something about car poop. But either way, yeah, go check out Access Granted, as well as many other very excellent docs with a wide variety of subjects on April 17th at 7:30 p.m. EST.
Friend of the show, Sal,
Awesome.
makes a good point in the chat, Mitch, and he says, Mitch, this thing that Alex worked on technically won an award.
It won 2.
It won 2 awards. I said at the beginning of the show, and I know that. That's just because we haven't put Press YYZ or YYZ video in contention for any awards to date. I'm sure once we do get it out there, that everyone's going to understand the content and really appreciate it.
They do have podcast awards. It's only a matter
those
of time.
exist, right? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
It's only a matter of time.
Why don't we make our own podcast awards and we call it the Potties?
I was going to say the Girthies, but
the Potties just sounds shitty, though.
This is kind of apropos of nothing, but earlier you guys were talking about how there are these things called world tiers in Outriders. I just want to say, I think that the coolest trope that I've been exposed to in sci-fi fiction over the past few years is attaching world to another noun and using that as like a really cool noun plot device thing. Like in Man of Steel, you have the world engine. In a certain magical index series of light novels, you have the world rejector, which is this super human power that basically banishes people to another dimension. Like, if you're working on your anime, light novel, sci-fi Netflix show of your own and you want it to come across as real cool, call the main MacGuffin in it the world something, because that is straight fire right there.
It even at the Game Awards, you got the world exclusive.
Oh, there we go.
And Xbox world premieres.
A little bit of
think about it.
Subliminal worlding.
This is interesting. There's actually kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about that I had a great segue for before Kozi came back to talk about world stuff. And that's that I played the demo for Aerial Knights Never Yield. Do you guys know what this is? Aerial Knights Never Yield?
It sounds like some anime-ass anime thing, and I'm very...
It's not. This was a game shown off in today's Nintendo Indie World Showcase event. And it is an endless runner set in a postmodern Tokyo-inspired Detroit with a great jazz-infused R&B soundtrack. It's really good, really simple. Demo's out on the eShop now if you're at all interested in it. I just kind of wanted to get into a bit of discussion about the Indie World Showcase. Did you guys get a chance to check it out at all, or any of the announcements?
I've been too busy playing Outriders.
I saw the Oxenfree 2 announcement, and that made me very excited.
I didn't really pay much attention to it. Sorry.
Okay. Let me quickly go through some of the things that were announced so you guys can get excited just like I am.
All right.
Indie World Showcase. So we got a new Ollie Ollie game announced. Ollie Ollie World. You guys know the Ollie Ollie franchise? Cozy.
They should have called it. They should have called it World Ollie Ollie.
Yeah,
it would have been cooler.
Good point. Close but no cigar.
No, so this is a new game in the Ollie Ollie franchise, which is like a 2D skateboarding game, but the art style is totally different. It looks a little more open, like there's more open-endedness to the levels. It looks really neat. The reason I said something was neat is because I saw Imran Khan tweet out that T. Lopez, I'm not sure the pronunciation, is doing the score for the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge game that was announced as a collaboration between the Streets of Rage 4 publisher and I can't remember the name of the studio exactly, but that composer is the same person that composed all the music for Sonic Mania.
Ooh, okay.
And the music in that was great. So I'm still very much looking forward to seeing how that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game comes together. We also got a new game announced called Road 96, which is a narrative game with branching paths. It's procedurally generated. No two trips will be exactly the same, multiple endings. It looks really, really interesting. That one's on my radar 100%.
It's like that dog sledding game, but with cars.
Sure. With less roguelike survival elements, but as you guys mentioned, Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals got announced. I still have to play the first one. It's sitting in my backlog on something. I feel like I got it cheap on the Switch for some reason.
That I have it on. Yeah, it was super cheap on Switch. It was free on Epic. Probably.
I don't know if I have it.
I think it's on Game Pass as well. There's a lot of avenues to play it, but it's really good. It's a really short, like 4-hour story game. And it's wonderful. And the fact that they're doing a sequel to it, I'm very interested to see what it's going to be.
Yeah, we also got an announcement that Fez is coming to the Switch, which I didn't expect because the second game got canceled, which tied into our topic of the show in a bit. And a couple of new games from Annapurna Interactive, Hindsight and Last Stop, both of which look fairly interesting.
Fez is one of those games where don't look anything up and just buy it if you haven't heard anything about it. Get a couple of friends to do the same and just like jump onto a Discord by yourselves and try and figure it out. See what you can figure out from that, because it was a bit of a world effort to learn all the ins and outs of what was going on in that. So.
Yes. Nate Plays Games in the chat. If you haven't, go check out twitch.tv/Nate Plays Games or the Geek Centric podcast, anywhere you can get it, where I recently did an episode of their watch club for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we'll be featuring on an upcoming gaming centric version or episode of the show with one of the hosts of the Video Games podcast, which was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Another game announced for the Switch that was already on mobile, and that's coming over to the Switch, is There Is No Game Wrong Dimension. Now, Kozi, you might want to pull this up for those watching along at home. It is very much in the vein of something like What the Golf, where there literally is no game, and you're doing weird things to interact with it. So, like, the game is moving around. To get the loading bar to move, you have to like tilt the loading bar so that the bar fills up via gravity. It looks bizarre in the best way. I might pick it up on mobile because I feel like it might be more suited to that platform, but it also looks great on the Nintendo Switch.
Lots of interesting games. I was looking at footage of that Road 96 game a little bit earlier, the one that's like the dog sledding game, but it's cars instead of dogs, as we all agreed upon previously. And that game looked pretty swell.
Only you agreed to that, but okay.
I mean, I got the sense that it was like a uniform consensus across the room. Alex, do you think that the car game is kind of like the dog sledding game, but with cars instead of dogs?
I mean, I guess in like maybe visual style, but even then, I don't think so.
We can quantify that as a maybe. I hate to, and if you consider maybe a 0.5, you can round that up to a 1. So let's just say it's a yes.
Or you could also round it down, and then it's a no.
AJ, do we want to round 0.1 down to a 0, or do we want to round it up to a 1?
Sorry, I have my mic muted. Round it to a 0.
All right, cool.
Consensus, except for Kozi. But yeah, no, there was a lot of fun stuff in that Indie World Showcase. If I would recommend going back and watching it because there was a lot of fun stuff in there. Speaking of fun stuff, Kozi, we haven't given you your anime corner of the episode. Go on and tell us all about Dr. Stone.
Hell yeah. Unfortunately, sadly, I'm not going to be playing a trailer for this live on the Twitch show, because last time we did that,
why would that be, Kozi?
We somehow got not a copyright strike, but a copyright whatchamacallit. A copyright.
Can't watch our last episode of the podcast in Pakistan because of something you did related to the WWE. I think
that wasn't even anime related. Anyway,
okay, wrestling is absolutely anime. First of all,
sure,
it's anime and tights and baby oil.
Yeah, it's real life anime.
Continue, Kozi.
In any case, so yeah, Dr. Stone. This is an anime that is not particularly new. If you've been paying attention to the animes for quite some time now, you're probably already familiar with this name. If not, however, let me regale you with a little bit about what the show is about. It is modern day Tokyo. Everything is going fine and dandy, when all of a sudden, everybody in the world is encased in stone, and slowly but surely over the course of centuries and then eventually millennia, the world reverts to a stone age like peacefulness and tranquility. Then one day, out of the blue, a young scientific genius, Senku, gets randomly awoken from his stony prison and goes about using his scientific prowess to restore the world to what it once was. I don't want to go too much more into detail, but if that premise sounds real interesting to you, I recommend you go and check it out. I've come to realize on this podcast that, not everybody who I podcast with and who watches the show is like deeply into the anime, and I specifically wanted to bring this one up because unlike the Spider Show, which is pretty out there, this show I feel is a good show to get into if you're somebody who doesn't typically watch anime on the reg and wants something that's a little bit more accessible, so to speak, in terms of both content and in terms of believability and generally in terms of like its supernatural elements. Other than the stone element that I talked about at the front, most of the problems that the characters overcome in this show are all overcome through actual logical scientific means. There are no like superpowers or anything weird of the sort, like people transfiguring into spiders. So by all means, go give it a watch. I bring it up now because I recently completed the second season of the show, which is called Dr. Stone Wars, because, of course, as you can imagine, by the time that we get around to the second tier, second season, second arc of anything, the characters have to start fighting each other. And let me tell you, it was a good game. It was I almost said it was a good game, but I meant to say it was a good time.
I mean, speaking of good games, I think maybe, Alex, you've been playing Assassin's Creed.
I did play through all of Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I brought it up, I think the last episode I was on, that I started it. So
like a month and a half ago.
Yeah. Yeah, But either way, I managed to get through it, and as well played through the Jack the Ripper DLC, which I think was probably one of the most interesting DLCs I've played, especially for the Assassin's Creed ones. Some of those earlier Assassin's Creed games had some kind of cool DLCs where they were like, what if we took something from this time period of history and put a spin onto it? And I remember one of the big ones was Assassin's Creed 3 with the what if George Washington decided to just become king of the United States?
Yep.
There was that one.
The Tyranny of King Washington, I believe that was called.
Yeah, that was a really cool one, and this is along those levels. Before I sort of get into the Jack the Ripper stuff, just because I think that's the most interesting part of the entire thing, the main game itself was pretty interesting. In no way, Barrett Courtney is an insane person for thinking that Assassin's Creed Syndicate is better than Odyssey or Valhalla. He is insane because Syndicate is not that good. Syndicate is solidly pretty good for what it was. But I feel like those new Assassin's Creed games have really transcended the sort of trappings that the original Assassin's Creeds had. But still, it was still wonderful. Jacob and Evie are some pretty great protagonists. I really did like the relationship that they had together and how it kind of started to break apart throughout the course of the game, and how they needed to, they needed to find themselves because they were so wrapped up in being twins. No spoilers, of course, because I do think it is worth playing. And yeah, one of the things, the only major thing that I'm so surprised that they haven't done this in another Assassin's Creed is there are certain missions when you have to assassinate your target that feel like they are Hitman. like they're very like the level design of it is very much like is very similar to the new IO Interactive, that's who they are, Hitman games. But this was also before at least the reboot of it, so it feels like they were taking a lot from Blood Money, where it's like you have like certain entry points and you can like get like interesting assassinations if you like follow these steps, and the game kind of like puts them in your face like, hey, if you take out this guy and steal his outfit, you'll be able to get this assassination opportunity. It was really cool. Something that I've not seen in any of the other games in the franchise, and I hope it's something that does return, because that is one of the things that is missing from Assassin's Creed now, is being an actual assassin. It feels like they've moved away from that quite a bit. But yeah, the Jack the Ripper DLC I think is the most interesting thing of like the entire time of playing Syndicate. They took this, this person who there's not much known about him because he was like this mystery person, this mystery murderer who got away, and so it allowed them a lot of opportunity to kind of play around with his backstory, his history. And yeah, like I think it was very cool. You get to play as Jack the Ripper for quite a bit of it, and the way that he plays is different than like how Evie plays through the DLC, which I think is, add some, especially jumping right from the main game to this DLC. It was very nice kind of getting that like contrast of characters, as well as one of the things that, especially with the main game, that was kind of weird, is they emphasize not killing people unless you absolutely have to, which is kind of nice because throughout the main game, you're just brutally murdering everybody who even looks at you funny. And so the fact that they're like, hey, maybe instead use fear to scare people, and they will run away, and there's like this whole fear system. It really reminded me of like Batman in a lot of ways, but for the most part, it's a solidly good Assassin's Creed game. I think it is one of the better of the like original, like the way that they handled Assassin's Creed before they took that break and then Origins, but in no way is it better than the new ones.
I neglected to mention something earlier, and I apologize that I'm having to circle back to it now. But as part of the Indie World Showcase, Nintendo did also announce an indie sale. And if you're at all interested in how Ollie Ollie World looks, Ollie Ollie Switch Stance, which is a bundle with the first game and the second game in the series, is on sale right now on the Switch eShop for $3 Canadian.
Ooh,
that's 3. That's 2 games for $3.
But Mitch,
doesn't get much better than that.
$1,700 on Vita games. That $3 is going to take away from my war chest devoted entirely to Sony's little handheld that could,
You single-handedly are going to bring the Vita back.
Hell yeah.
But they're going to see this one purchase from Montreal of $1,000. Be like, what the hell? Someone hacked into our servers.
It'll be you, Greg Miller, and Colin Moriarty. It'll be the three of you who are going to bring the Vita back.
They're going to try and they're going to fail.
Yeah, but
Vita will I think with that being said, unless anyone's got anything else, we can wrap up what we've been up to and get into our topic of the show.
Hell yeah.
Let's do it.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So this topic was brought to us by friend of the show, podcaster over at Addictive Nerds. They do the Stratus Gaming podcast every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you haven't already, go and check them out. Rob Plays, who is a frequent contributor to the pain behind me, my exterior. No, Rob's great, and he suggested this topic, and we're going to get to it. And it is having a discussion about canceled games. Games that were canceled that we wanted, games that were canceled that, was justified, and maybe some games that came out that probably should have been canceled. But we'll stick to the first one and see how much time we got left. So who wants to kick us off? Who wants to talk about a game that was canceled that they really wanted to play?
I have one. It's one I still want to play. I still remember getting like an issue of like Game Informer back in the day and seeing pictures of it. I love the original game, and it still hurts me that nothing ever came of it. Not that it would have been any good necessarily, and it's probably the most infamous one, at least of our generation. StarCraft Ghost is absolutely like the idea that you go from this in StarCraft, this top-down RTS perspective, and get put into essentially the body of one of those. They kind of made good on it in StarCraft 2 a little bit, in that Nova, the character who you would be playing as, does show up in the story. And it was very satisfying for me at the time, at least. But I still think it would be interesting to, I don't know, maybe in a very Outriders-like fashion, go on some sort of adventure with these characters, basic military-like characters, but who can also do things that are neat. So.
Yeah, honestly, as soon as you brought that up, the first comment in our chat related to canceled games, courtesy of Brynvar, a good friend of ours, was StarCraft Ghost. So I think that's one that a lot of people would clamor for if Blizzard ever got back to, making original games.
Yeah,
this game,
that'd be nice.
Like, for the record, like, this game was such a certainty at one point that Blizzard straight up just released the opening cinematic to this game, which is what we're currently looking at on Twitch. If you don't have Twitch in front of you right now, just search up opening cinematic to StarCraft Ghost on YouTube, and it's right there in its full CGI glory. This is not like a test render or like a bunch of storyboards scribbled on a bunch of pieces of paper. It's like a real-ass 6-minute video with real-ass people saying real cool-ass things. And
it may also be on our YouTube video if it doesn't get claimed and we have to blur it out.
No, I don't think this one will get claimed. I think it's going to be okay.
I'm just prefacing it. All right, anyone else want to talk about StarCraft, or do we want to move on to the next one?
That was going to be like an original Xbox game, right?
Yeah, Xbox, PS2, GameCube.
Oh man,
yeah.
Would have been interesting to have seen what it actually turned out to be, but honestly, it probably also wouldn't have been good. I know it's Blizzard, but I just don't think it would have. I mean,
they also made StarCraft 64, so
that's true.
The next one that our chat will not shut up about it, so let's just get it out of the way. You've got Jeebus in there, you've got Nate Plays Games in there, you've got Sal in there. It's Star Wars 1313. The Amy Hennig directed Star Wars game. That was not Amy
Hennig.
Wasn't
Amy Hennig was Ragtag.
No. Ragtag, you're right.
Star Wars 1313, it was before EA.
It was before
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It was the EA licensing agreement killed that game.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad. That game could have been something very special.
Fun fact, my friend Ben worked at Visceral while Amy Hennig was making that Ragtag game and working on it. And I don't know if he has any details. He hasn't shared any with me. He's probably been NDA'd to shit on that sort of thing. But everything else that has like leaked out about it seemed promising. Not just 13, and even 1313. Like, it could have been. What's the one that came? The Fort. What's the one that just came out?
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order. It could have been Fallen Order before Fallen Order.
Yeah, I think the thing that hurts the most about 1313 is what we're seeing on the stream right now is we got this very extensive gameplay look at it, and it looked really cool. It looked like Uncharted, but with Star Wars, and I think that's what hurt the most. Like, the Amy Hennig Ragtag, that being canceled, did hurt, but we didn't see anything about it. We saw one very, very brief, like, in-engine render of Mos Eisley, and that was it. Where this, like, we saw gameplay, we saw like what the game was going to be, and so it really let like everyone's imagination run wild of what could have been, and so I think that's what hurt the most about it.
Yeah, it just seemed like such a fun concept of, you're going to get this third-person action adventure game set in an area of Star Wars we very rarely taken a look at. I know the last season of the Clone Wars looked a little bit more into like the deeper levels of Coruscant, but it's really not something that's been explored to any extent. So if we could have gotten that through this, that would have been phenomenal.
Hell
yeah, definitely.
If you in the chat, or you listening on your MP3 player, or maybe you're somebody on a bus and somebody's playing this episode on a boombox, wants to know a little bit more about Star Wars 1313, there's a great chapter about its development and subsequent demise in the Jason Schreier book, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. So be sure to check that out if you wanted to fully understand just what happened to this really genuinely great looking game.
His new book comes out soon, right?
Yeah, I believe next month.
Yeah, I've seen people have like early copies of it.
I'm very much looking forward to that because the last book, I just could not put it down. So I'm very interested to see what he gets in the sequel, or not sequel, but the follow-up Press Reset. Should be very good. Not an ad. We have not been sent copies of this. Although, Jason, if you're listening, we'd love a copy to take a look at early. Send you some feedback.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're looking for a
small
Canadian
timer like you.
Perspective.
Us.
All right, who's got other canceled games they want to blather on about for the next hour plus? However long we go.
There's a couple that are like the super obvious, notorious ones. We've already gone through one of them being Star Wars 1313.
Before we talk a little bit about like some of the more obvious ones, I want to talk about one that's near and dear-ish to my heart that I feel doesn't really get brought up all that often because it's a little bit of a different nature than the prior two games we talked about. So, who here is familiar with a little game called Spec Ops: The Line?
Love it. I've heard of it.
Okay, so Alex and Mitch have played it. AJ, you have heard of it, but you've not played it. We don't know whether.
Yeah, I've heard very good things about it. Nothing that I can like recall at on the spot, but yeah, it's one of those.
It is backwards compatible on the Xbox One. So just saying.
Good to know.
I think it was also in PlayStation Plus years ago on the PlayStation 3, and that's how I played it. Or PS4?
That sounds right.
It would have been PlayStation 3.
PS3, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. So Spec Ops: The Line never had a sequel go into active production, and Walt Williams, who was one of the main writers and main kind of creative visionaries on that game, never wanted a sequel to go into production for that matter either. But before he kind of ended his tenure at the studio that was working on Spec Ops: The Line, Walt did pen a script for a DLC for Spec Ops: The Line that would have been this what-if scenario where the entire time you're playing as these three soldiers that go into a sand-swept version of Dubai. And without getting into any spoilers, because this is one of those games where you really don't want to spoil it ahead of time if you've not played it, things go very, very, very bad. The character that you're playing as basically goes to confront the man that he believes is responsible for the game's madness, and bad things happen as a result. Along the way, the two people who are following him around get killed, one of whom, Sergeant Adams, seemingly dies off screen. And basically, this DLC that Walt Williams penned that never went into production, but like a full script of it exists somewhere, presumably on like a random computer in Germany where this game was developed, exists. And I actually happen to have right here Significant Zero, which is partially green screened out. No dear, on account of the book. The book's not doesn't have a green color, by the way. It has a yellow cover, but I guess that's enough for the green screen.
They're adjacent on the color wheel.
Yeah, exactly. In the book, Walt Williams talks a little bit about the DLC's production and what it would have been about. Basically, the idea is that Sergeant Adams wakes up after seemingly dying over the course of the main campaign. He's pissed. He really desperately wanted to die, and he hates that he's alive. So he's like, you know what? I'm just going to grab a disguise, and I'm just going to walk out of Dubai. The entire course of Spec Ops: The Line has taught me and the people that played it that being in Dubai is a very bad idea. You're going to commit horrific war crimes and other atrocities. So let's just not, try and poke the bear any longer and get out of here. As he's getting out, however, he notices this other sergeant, Sergeant Paza, who's basically a young member of the opposing force that they fought in the game. He recognizes that Sergeant Paza is a little bit green, and so he's like, you know what? As this one last act, I'm going to try and get Sergeant Paza out of Dubai. And not a lot of information is provided on exactly what would have entailed throughout the entirety of the DLC. But basically, it would have culminated in them actually successfully getting out of Dubai, only for this to happen. So I'm going to just read to you a little exchange here. So basically, Sergeant Pazza and Sergeant Adams managed to get out of Dubai. Adams basically uses a radio to call for evacuation, and as he's talking on the radio, Pazza realizes, oh shit, this is one of the three protagonists that entered into Dubai and basically fucked shit up for us. So Pazza points his gun at Adams and says, you lied to me. Adams, yeah, I did. So what? Pazza, so what? You ruined everything. This is your fault. Adams, it's everyone's fault. Pazza, we were trying to help. Adams, so were we. Things got out of hand. Pazza cocks his gun. Pazza, you destroyed the water. You killed those people at the gate. Adams, not arguing that. Adams lowers his gun and throws it away. His shoulders sag. He is weak, tired. His eyes stare at the ground. Adams, go home to your family. Be better than what happened here. Pazza, the hell are you doing? This some kind of trick? Adams, no trick. Just calling in your debts. Adam pulls Lugo's dog tags out of his pocket. He tossed them into the sand between him and Pazza. Those belong to Staff Sergeant John Lugo. Make sure they get to his family. That's number one. Number two, Adams lifts his head just enough to look Pazza in the eyes. He points to the left side of his chest, below his heart, but near his lung. Aim here. It won't be fast, but that's all right. I'll bleed out before the medvac arrives. Tell them that I was injured during our escape. You tried to revive me, but I was too far gone. Pazza. Why? Adams. Because I just can't do this anymore. And yeah, a little bit of a down note after the excesses of Star Wars 1313 and StarCraft Ghost, but it would have culminated in a pretty dark and intense fashion. Yet I still think that I would have been all for it, just because, like, to really kind of like drill down to it. When I think back to the past couple of console generations, particularly the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 generation, I feel like some of my favorite experiences from that generation were the 2 to 3 hour story-based DLCs for some of my most beloved games of that time. Like, for example, Lair of the Shadow Broker for Mass Effect 2, Citadel for Mass Effect 3, Broken Seal for Fallout 3. All these DLCs are like, hey, you're already familiar with the world and mechanics of Bioshock 2. Now let's give you Bioshock 2 Minerva's Den, where we kind of put all those mechanics to test, but we also toss in some cool new stuff. And we as developers are already so intimately familiar with our worlds and systems and enemies. Let's really kind of put that design expertise to the highest level of designiness that we can possibly push it to. And I feel like I really enjoyed Spec Ops: The Line in its original form, but I feel like this ephemeral 2 to 3 hour narrative-based DLC that would have seen one of the characters of the game receive a proper grisly send-off could have been something really special that, on account of it not being super long, would have been all the more memorable and all the more replayable. So, yeah. Video games.
Yeah, Spec Ops: The Line was something very special, and to get kind of more of that would have been very, very cool.
I have no idea where to go with that because I went to a place I did not expect it to go to. I have no transition. Does anyone have anything else I want to talk about canceled games wise so I can think of something better?
I got one. Go ahead, Alex.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's the big one in the room, the elephant that we have not talked about yet, Silent Hills by Hideo Kojima. I mean, it's a game that was super notorious because of the PT demo that came out, and then everyone, like, Hideo Kojima plus the weirdness of Silent Hill, it sounded like a match made in heaven. And there's part of me that's like, you know what? Because of what happened with Silent Hills and Metal Gear Solid 5, we got Death Stranding because of it. So part of me is like, was it really that big a deal? Because Death Stranding is incredible, and it is a masterpiece, flawed masterpiece, let me say. But it would still be very cool to see Hideo Kojima do a actual honest-to-God horror game, and especially like the psychological horror that Silent Hills is really known for, as well as just some of the things that like or kind of talked about like what he wanted to do and have an app on your phone that will call you and talk to you as you're playing the game. And like he had this idea of like, oh, what if it connected to your like Alexa, and it fucked with that in some ways, like things like that it's like only Hideo Kojima could really probably feasibly get away with, or things that I would still love to see at some point. And at this point, all the IPs that Konami own are essentially just dead in the water. So it would have been nice to have the final send off for Silent Hill not be. I mean,
they're not dead. They're pachinko machines now.
A fate worse than death. You're correct.
Yeah. While you say that,
I mean,
we did get the announcement that E3 is coming back in some virtual form this year, and one of their partners is Konami. So I would be shocked if it was anything other than like a Contra collection, but at the same time,
Metal Gear.
You never know.
That's true. Also, another of the sort of big things that was a very big disappointment with Silent Hills, I just got reminded of it by watching the trailer on the live stream, was the fact that Guillermo del Toro was involved with it. And this is like another game that he was a part of that got canceled. He's had a very bad run with video games. And so it would have been super nice, especially because Guillermo del Toro is such a visionary person, and like he's so good with horror and monsters, that it really, like, his involvement would have been something special. And he didn't really have an involvement in Death Stranding. They used his body for it, like, because his body is one of the characters, but besides that, he didn't contribute to what Death Stranding was. And so there's a whole bunch of things about it. But yeah, Silent Hills is one of like the most notorious ones, just because I think of Hideo Kojima being involved with it. It would have been so nice to have gotten whatever that game was going to be, because the PT demo is still one of the best horror experiences ever. Totally. It would have been cool to see it fully fleshed out.
What's funny is that, I mean, we're unlikely to specifically get a Hideo Kojima Silent Hills game at this point, but like, it's not unlikely that we could see Hideo Kojima announce a new game pretty soon, and the chances of that game being a Xbox Game Pass exclusive horror game are not absolutely out of the cards at this point.
God, that would be insane. I would kill just to be on Twitter the day that gets announced. That would be awesome.
I don't think you have
it's going to break the internet and whatever he announces.
You know what would have been a really good Game Pass game if Game Pass existed by the time this game got canceled?
Scalebound?
Scalebound.
Rest in peace.
It's one of those that looked so interesting, and kind of not at the same time. But the idea of being a dude and you got this dragon that you can I don't know.
It's How to Train Your Dragon, the game.
Basically, and like a little more realistic and whatever, a little more anime. And it looked super close to finish, too. Yeah. Like, just whatever you got, just put it on Game Pass at this point. Like, come on.
I mean, I feel like at this point, though, it would turn into a Crackdown 3 thing, where it's like, that game should have been canceled, and they just kept pushing it along and stitching it together, and then it turned out to be Crackdown 3.
If this goes by the way of Crackdown 3, they're probably going to have some anime cutscenes in this version of the game, because Crackdown 3 had like animated cutscenes because they couldn't fully animate them through other means.
Would Scalebound also feature Terry Crews in some form?
That would just
make it should.
Yeah. Every game should feature Terry Crews.
I would make it better.
Yeah. But like, I mean, it was Platinum too. So it's like Platinum. I mean, there are two different types of Platinum. There are the licensed video games.
Transformers Devastation.
And then you get the Bayonettas. And this was looking, I mean, I don't know if this was the studio that does like Bayonetta and stuff, but I mean, just watching the gameplay of it right now,
it looks super cool. It looks like a video game as video game in the best way, and that would have been perfect if Game Pass existed.
It would have been one of the only reasons to own an Xbox One as well.
Yeah, and it was at a time where they were absolutely hurting for exclusives, and that it was one of the biggest criticism is that, you know, the previous generation, it was PS3 has no games, and then the Xbox One generation, it was Xbox has no games. So it's like, I don't know. It just, it's kind of heartbreaking just to see like all the effort that clearly went in to make even this pre-alpha gameplay demo look the way it does and play the way it looks like it does. There's, I don't know. It's another one that's just, I really hope they just do something with whatever they got and just like use Game Pass as a mechanism to show us something else. And like the only way you can experience that is on Xbox through Game Pass. Like, for example, Star Fox 2 came out only on the Super Nintendo Classic system, right? You could use Game Pass as that sort of delivery system for things that didn't quite make it out or something like that, or what have you, like artifacts of gaming past and everything. And I think that would be super interesting.
Yeah. By the way, quickly,
I feel like it also came to this. Yeah, it did. It came to the SNES Online app for the Nintendo Switch,
but only a few years after the fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it didn't exist until a few years after the fact, but yeah. It would be great to see Platinum go to Sony and be like, "Hey, Microsoft gave us this IP and this project back. Do y'all want to pay us to finish it?" And then they do. That would be funny.
That would be.
I don't know if PlayStation is going to be the ones to make that.
Maybe
happen.
not right now.
Yeah, not right now.
Nintendo's more likely to do it than PlayStation.
But speaking of a game that should have gotten some love and didn't, Mega Man Universe. You guys familiar with the Mega Man Universe? This was going to be a 2D Mega Man game akin to like the old style Mega Man games with kind of like a 3D flair on the art style. Think sort of like Mighty Number 9. But it was also going to be one in which there was like a world creator similar to Super Mario Maker, as well as the character that itself was customizable. And you could use like the gross Mega Man 1 box art Mega Man in the game. And there was just like, they promised all this customization and all these things, and it totally got canceled for no reason that we're aware of. But shortly after, or right around the same time that it got canceled, Keiji Inafune left Capcom. So that probably had something to do with it. But I really wish this. I remember the announcement video for this because it was part of like a Mega Man celebration event. And I was so excited for this to become real, and it never did. And it makes me sad.
I've not done any research on what happened to this game. I do know though that this is around the same period of time where Capcom was deep in the throes of we're trying to conquer the Western market phase, and so I would not be surprised if like this project began as a pet project. They realized halfway through that actually this was going to require a lot more resources and money to come together, and they're like, it's a little bit too niche of a product, a little bit too Japanese in terms of its focus. Let's just cancel it and kind of cut our costs and move on to something that we think would be more lucrative. I know a lot of people like to be conspiracy theoristic when it comes to Keiji Inafune and how like Capcom basically canceled a lot of Mega Man stuff to kind of spite him, and like, I don't know, maybe that is true of some of these projects, but I always kind of like feel kind of iffy when people propose that that's the reason why they kind of abandoned Mega Man for a while back then.
According to this Kotaku article, I Am 8-Bit made that launch trailer you were just showing on the stream /YouTube video. And if you haven't, go check out this announcement trailer, because it's just so full of nostalgic love for Mega Man as a character, and just the hype of it was great. Yeah, I'm really sad that game didn't come to be.
Mm-hmm. On the subject of 2D platformers, I do want to take a quick second to talk a little bit about Metroid Dread. Unlike a lot of the games that we've been talking about over the course of the past few minutes, Metroid Dread was a game that never really had any kind of footage, or for that matter, even screenshots shown off of it. It was a planned 2D sequel to Metroid Fusion for the Nintendo DS that was sort of kind of announced in 2005 via an issue of Game Informer. But then after that, the kind of trail on it kind of went cold, and basically by 2010, Nintendo more or less confirmed that the project was no longer really in development. But it's one of those cases, kind of like StarCraft Ghost, where nobody has ever officially said, yes, the project is 100% dead. And so you still have people wondering, is it like, sitting somewhere in a vault waiting to be revived? Is it in limbo? Is there, one monkey pressing random keys on a keyboard somewhere in like a obscure office building within Nintendo working slowly but surely on this game? Nobody knows, but I mean, most likely it's never going to come to fruition. There's not a lot of information that's known about this game in terms of like mechanics or story, except that, as I stated earlier, it was meant to be a continuation of the events of Metroid Fusion on the GBA. And just on that basis alone, I would have been personally really excited to play Metroid Dread, because I think a problem that the Metroid franchise has run into in recent years is that it feels like every single Metroid game that we get that is a quality Metroid experience is like a remake or a re-release of a previously existing game. And outside of Metroid Prime 4, it feels like every single game that fans are asking for are like, hey, let's get another remake of Super Metroid. Let's get a glossy remake of Metroid Fusion. And all the rumors that we've heard, whether they're genuine rumors or not, have been about like Metroid Fusion or Super Metroid remakes. And I will gladly play those games if/when they eventually materialize. But personally, I just really want the Metroid franchise to continue to branch out with new titles, new adventures that are not remakes of pre-existing properties. I really feel like the franchise has really constrained itself by not kind of moving too far past a lot of its original classics. And I really feel like the story and the world and the characters really need to be jump-started, and maybe in another reality, Metroid Dread could have jump-started it. Just like a little tidbit, the story of Metroid Fusion ends with Samus Aran and the kind of Galactic Federation, the kind of peacekeeping force within the galaxy that she lives in, kind of being at odds with each other, because Samus makes a decision to blow up a space station to destroy this alien parasite that the Galactic Federation wanted to like study and harness its power. It's very similar to like the ending of the original Alien film from 1979, for example. And theoretically, Metroid Dread would have followed up on those events and like, all right, what does a Metroid universe look like right now, where Samus Aran is in the right, but she is not liked by the rest of the peacekeeping galactic community? Do we see Samus Aran go rogue? Is she going to be fighting other people that theoretically also stand for goodness and justice within the galaxy? There could have been a lot of interesting narrative stuff there, but I suppose all that we can really do right now is just wait for Retro Studios to finish Metroid Prime 4, whenever that'll be.
Yeah, who knows with that one.
Give them all
Good
the time
luck.
they need. Let them make a great game rather than having it come out and be mediocre. You can't have that series come back and be mediocre in any way. It's got to be a banger.
I'm going to say right here and right now, I think we will get our next tease of Metroid Prime 4 at this year's E3. Nintendo is one of the partners that have partnered with the ESA for this year's weird-ass digital E3 event, and I think one of the bangers that they're going to bring is their next look at Metroid Prime 4.
They need to bring something.
I think so.
Who knows?
What's his
They'll
name?
bring Pokemon.
Dylan Job.
All the Pokemon.
Dylan Job,
bangers.
who's like one of the like main project developers at Retro Studios right now on Metroid Prime 4. He tweeted out like a week or so ago, like, oh man, we just passed a new milestone. Didn't, provide any more details on that. Didn't say it was for Metroid Prime 4, but it can't be any other project other than Metroid Prime 4 because he's working at Retro. So like they're making progress there. They're not standing still. And I have faith.
I mean, the milestone could have just been they got gun animation to work. We don't know how far along it is, to be honest. I think it's, again, give them all the time they need.
When did it get rebooted again? Like, when did Nintendo at least come out?
The beginning of 2019, January 2019.
So it will be. It's already been 3 years.
2.5 years.
Two and a half. Yeah. Right.
I don't think
numbers work.
with the pandemic, I don't think we'll see that until any earlier than 2022.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it to come out this year. But
I mean, even just a tease. I don't expect them to bring it back until they can put a release date on it.
Yeah. You're right. You're totally right. But I hold on. I held out hope that we're gonna get ourselves a teaser at this E3.
Okay. Does anyone else have any canceled games they want to talk about?
I got one more that I would like
to
bring. So this is one that would have come during what I would say was a golden era for this developer, and that developer being Rockstar. The PS3 canceled game Agent. The PS3 360 generation of Rockstar, I feel like some could argue either the PS2 original Xbox or PS3 360 was golden age. I think it was personally the 360 because I think like Grand Theft Auto 4 might be a little dated now, but when it came out was awesome. LA Noire was a really weird and interesting experience. Max Payne 3 is one of the best third-person shooters I've ever played. Red Dead Redemption is incredible, still like insanely good. And then ending it off with Grand Theft Auto 5, which is, a game that is still relevant now. Huge. It would have been really cool to see. And also Bully Scholarship Edition. I know that was like kind of a re-release of a PS2 game, but still, there were so many great games that Rockstar did during this time. It would have been really cool to, for one, see somebody tackle this like Cold War era, time period, because it's not a lot of games get really placed there. The only like one of note really is Call of Duty, and I feel like Rockstar would have handled it just slightly differently than like Call of Duty Black Ops.
So, fun fact, if you go to rockstargames.com/games/agent, you can still see Rockstar's official post announcing Agent. It says, Rockstar Games is proud to announce Agent. Developed by the people behind Grand Theft Auto, Rockstar North, Agent will be available exclusively for the PlayStation 3 computer entertainment system. Agent takes players on a paranoid journey into the world of counterintelligence, espionage, and political assassinations during the height of the Cold War at the end of the 1970s.
Oh, God, that sounds so cool. And the fact that it was Rockstar North as well. There's so many things in its favor, and we never saw anything except for this title.
Yep.
Which was, I think, in some ways is like the only saving grace of it being canceled was the fact that we had no idea what it could have been. So really, it's just like, whatever your imagination can, I guess, take it to. But, it's still just like, it still would have been really cool to see Rockstar do something different, especially now where it really seems like they are not going to venture very far away from Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead. It would be nice to, see them do something different. And maybe one day we'll see the Agent get revived. But
I can just see someone with a stick poking Rockstar, just be like, do something new, please.
How about
they don't have a stick big enough to touch them on their big pile of money?
Let me pitch you on this. How about not a re-release of Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PS5 and Xbox Series X, but a remake of Grand Theft Auto 5 for the PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Yes, let's remake all the games from 2013. The ancient year of 2013.
Yes, because backwards compatibility doesn't exist.
Not
Alex,
to Sony.
Serious question.
Yeah.
Are you at all interested in Project 007, which is the new James Bond game that's being worked on by IO Interactive?
Oh, absolutely. IO is incredible. They make great stealth games, and the fact that I like that they're doing something different from Hitman. I haven't played Hitman 3 yet, but all I've heard about it is that it's incredible. And so the fact that they're doing something different, and I think tonally will be interesting to see how they tackle, but yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see, because like all of the James Bond games that we've gotten have been first-person shooter action games, and they don't really lean into the stealth, like spy aspect of James Bond, and that's what I'm really, really hoping that IO manages to achieve with this new game. So yes.
I got nothing. I got one more game, and then we can wrap this up. How's that sound?
Sure.
Sure.
I feel like
Sounds good to me.
the three of us have been talking an awful lot on this episode, and I kind of feel bad, Mitch, because it seems like
No, don't.
You know.
That's what the host does. I facilitate the conversation between each of you, and I had like 2 games I wanted to talk about for this topic, so I'd rather you guys go on about the things you're passionate about. But one thing I'm passionate about is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let me take you back. It's like 2009, 2010. Marvel announces that they're going to make an Avengers movie. And someone gets the rights to make a tie-in game. That was THQ. THQ's The Avengers, which would have come out to coincide with the release of the movie. You knew it was going to be something comic books related. You know me. And who wouldn't want a first-person shooter with Marvel heroes at the center of it, right?
It would be something.
First person is the weird part about this, is the fact that, like, I mean, really, I feel like it only makes sense for like 2 of the characters for it to be in first person, but
3 maybe.
you know
you
what?
could make it work, like. But I mean, when you think of like games, have a really hard time doing first person melee combat good.
So this was a game that actually, it wasn't a direct tie-in to the movie. They were planning on adapting the Secret Invasion storyline, and now we know, as part of the MCU's rollout, we're going to get a Secret Invasion TV series with Samuel L. Jackson coming back, and I'm so excited for that. But it would have adapted that comic book line, and they actually brought in Brian Michael Bendis, who wrote the original narrative for Secret Invasion, to contribute to the story of this game, and it looked like things were coming together. And then THQ did things like U-Draw. And
single-handedly killed them.
Company, yeah. And it didn't really work out. So the game ultimately had to be canceled after THQ went to Marvel asking for more money. And as THQ selling off everything, they sold off the license rights to make a tie-in game for the Avengers movie to Ubisoft. And that got us Marvel Avengers Battle for Earth, which was absolutely terrible. It released on the Xbox 360 and Wii U and had Kinect support and was really, really bad.
Oh, it's this game. Okay.
Yeah, that game. It was not good. And just think back to what could have been in 2012, after the heyday of Marvel doing things like Ultimate Alliance 2, and
Iron Man 2 for the Xbox 360. Remember that game?
There was a Thor game at some point.
Captain America.
Captain American game was actually pretty good. I put that on the Wii. It was pretty good.
It was the best of the bunch.
Not saying a lot. But then we got Square Enix Marvel Avengers in 2020, and that just made me so happy. Didn't make everyone that happy, but it made me happy, and that's what counts. But what could have been with THQ's The Avengers?
Earlier, we were talking about how, we had mixed feelings about THQ's Avengers being a first-person shooter. You actually reminded me over the course of that conversation that there was a Harry Potter game, specifically a game based off of the second Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows movie, that was not a first-person shooter, but a third-person shooter.
Like a Gears of War style game.
Yeah, where basically...
But with wizards.
Your gun is your
This video is 100% going to get claimed on YouTube.
Is it?
Yes. Continue.
Okay.
It's not even like, this isn't like from the official Warner Brothers or Harry Potter account. This is just from some random...
They will find you.
Okay, fine.
Warner Brothers doesn't fuck around.
But I remember when this game was first announced. I remember reading the IGN article like, hey, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is going to be a first-person shooter. I remember having this wave of emotion wash over me where I'm like, oh, on one hand, that's kind of a novel idea that I never would have thought about. Like, what if Harry Potter was a third-person shooter? And then on the other hand, I'm like, oh, but they're only making it a third-person shooter because shooters are, all the rage nowadays, and they sell super, super, super duper well. And I kind of feel the same way about the Avengers campaign, about the Avengers THQ game, where it's like I think the potential of like an Avengers first-person shooter is actually pretty high. I think that they, in theory, could have made something really cool out of this. The problem is that I feel like at the time, the decision to have this Avengers game be a first-person shooter was very much a, it was very much a money-based decision and not like a creative decision. And as a result, I feel based on that, I don't know that this product specifically would have been all that it could have been cracked up to be when it released, if it had hypothetically ever released. But I don't want to completely close the door on the idea of an Avengers first-person shooter. I feel like this project specifically might have approached that kind of idea from the wrong angle to begin with.
Either way, those have been some of the games that we would have loved to have seen come out that didn't, even if they would have been a solid 6 out of 10 on IGN when it comes to Avengers. And with that, unless anyone's got anything else they want to interject with,
I do want to quickly say, I mean, there are no games for this. This isn't even a game or an app or anything, but I really do wish that Nintendo had released the vitality sensor.
That's fair.
A wholesome Satoru Iwata asks moment where he came out at the very end of E3 2009. It's in between the trailers for Resident Evil something Chronicles and Metroid Other M's debut trailer. And he's like, hey, we want to show off this new project that we're working on for the Wii. Please look forward to it. Thank you for your understanding. Goodbye. And we never saw it again. And I to this very day shed many a tear quietly by myself whenever I think about it.
Nintendo definitely likes to throw ideas out there, and if they don't exactly stick, then they move on. That's for sure. And
I mean, it's not even. Sorry, go ahead.
It's just the vitality sensor is definitely something that I would have liked to see somebody take advantage of. There's a game out right now that's actually experimenting with using your webcam, and it changes the scene. I forget the name of the game, but it's like every time you blink, the story progresses in a weird way, and it's supposed to represent like your life flashing before your eyes. If you blink, you'll miss it, that sort of thing. And it's actually apparently a really good concept. Unfortunately, I forget the name of it. But little things like that are kind of like what Nintendo's good at. They don't always stick, but they're good at coming up with those concepts.
The game you're thinking of is called Before Your Eyes.
Yes, that's the one.
That's a pretty good name. If that game company that developed Before Your Eyes didn't have a name and they came to me asking for a name, I would have said you should call it World Blinker. I think that would have worked out well.
God damn it.
And with that,
just cancel the game.
I think with that we can wrap. Well, we can cancel the game, and we can wrap up this episode of Press YYZ. So thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed what you just listened to, please be sure to share it, subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell, the subscribe notifications, all that jazz. Rate and review us on any of your podcast service. Follow us on Twitter, Press YYZ, Twitch, Press YYZ, literally anywhere, Press YYZ. You can check us out over on Discord, invite.gg/PressYYZ. You want to just hang out and voice chat all day at work and get nothing done and hang out, which is always a good time. Next week's episode is going to be super special. We will be joined by Irrational Passions' Alex O'Neill to conceptualize and rank the greatest video game themed theme park attractions that will never happen. This will be pre-recorded, but we'll be here on Twitch anyway at 8. And it'll go up everywhere else around the same time. We can hang out, have a good time, and that is the plan. All your hosts can be found on the various social medias. All of those links will be in the description of this episode. And until next time, thanks for playing.
Take care, guys.